In the far reaches of the universe, humanity had once been nothing more than a fledgling species on a tiny, blue planet orbiting an unremarkable star. For centuries, Earthlings struggled to make their mark on the cosmos, confined by the limits of their own world. But on a fateful day in the year 2137, the Earthlings would awaken to their true potential. The first contact was not a grand display of cosmic ships or the arrival of advanced alien civilizations, as many had imagined. Instead, it was a quiet transmission that slipped through the fabric of space itself, reaching Earth like a whisper. The message was simple, cryptic, and came from a race of beings known only as the Architects. They were ancient, wise, and saw potential in humanity that no one else had before. The Architects did not offer technology, nor did they promise power. They offered knowledge, a challenge to humanity to reach beyond their home planet and claim their place among the stars. At first, many on Earth dismissed the transmission. Governments, corporations, and ordinary people alike struggled to believe that they were truly being called to greatness. Yet, as the days passed, humanity's brightest minds began to decipher the message. It was a map to an ancient relic buried deep in the heart of the moon, a relic said to unlock the secrets of the universe itself. The world quickly united behind the discovery. Nations set aside their differences, and scientists, engineers, and soldiers from every corner of the Earth began to work together, focusing all their efforts on one goal: to uncover the relic and understand its power. It was a monumental task, and it would push humanity to its limits, but it was clear that the world was on the precipice of something far greater than anyone could have imagined. As the first crew prepared to journey to the moon, skepticism still lingered. The thought of uncovering a relic from a forgotten civilization was a daunting prospect, and some feared it could bring ruin rather than glory. But the curiosity that had driven humanity's greatest achievements, from the first steps on the moon to the exploration of distant planets, was stronger than ever. The question was not whether they could succeed, but whether they had the courage to try. Months later, a multinational fleet of spacecraft touched down on the barren surface of the moon, where the relic lay waiting. The team of astronauts, engineers, and scientists were the first to set foot on a world that had once been a symbol of human ambition. They gathered around the entrance to an ancient, sealed structure deep within the lunar craters. With trembling hands and bated breath, they activated the system, and the structure slowly opened, revealing an alien technology far beyond anything humanity had ever conceived. Inside, they discovered the Architect's gift, a device capable of harnessing the raw energy of stars themselves. The implications were staggering. This technology could provide boundless power, making the energy crises that had plagued Earth a thing of the past. But even more incredible was what it revealed: a map to other relics scattered across the galaxy, relics that could elevate humanity to a status far beyond any of their neighbors. Humanity had just become the heir to an interstellar legacy. The Earth was no longer an isolated, fragile planet in the vast emptiness of space. With the relic in their possession, humanity was thrust into the galactic stage. And they would not be content to simply observe. The Architects had seen something in Earthlings that no other race had. They had seen the will to rise above, to confront the impossible and achieve the unthinkable. Now, with the technology to back it up, humanity would show the universe that it had underestimated the strength, ingenuity, and relentless drive of its newest inhabitants. The Earthlings became legends, but their story was just beginning. They would face challenges unimaginable to most: alien empires, galactic wars, and threats from forces beyond comprehension. Yet, with every trial they overcame, they would prove to the universe that humanity was destined for greatness. They would carve their names into the annals of history, becoming not just survivors, but conquerors, diplomats, and visionaries in a universe that had never seen anything quite like them. But as the Earthlings set their sights on the stars, they would come to realize one undeniable truth: the path to becoming legends was not one paved with victories alone, but with sacrifice, loss, and the strength to rise from every defeat. And the greatest triumphs of humanity were yet to come. With the relic in their possession, humanity's destiny seemed sealed. But the galactic map embedded within the device held secrets far more perilous than any could have anticipated. The first trials were upon them, the challenge of navigating the stars and uncovering the mysteries hidden in distant corners of the galaxy. As the Earthlings adapted to their newfound power, they established the first interstellar fleet, a conglomerate of military ships, research vessels, and civilian crafts, all fueled by the energy drawn from the relic. It was a bold move, a test of their willpower, but also an acknowledgement of the tremendous risks they were about to face. The map indicated the location of 3 major relics, each positioned on a distant, hostile world, but the journey would not be easy. The architects had warned that the relics were guarded by forces beyond human comprehension, forces that had watched over these artifacts for millennia. The first target was a distant planet known as Sci-Fi, a planet cloaked in a dense, impenetrable fog. Its surface was home to a species of sentient beings known as the Orcs, a formidable, warlike civilization that had thrived for eons. Their technology was unknown, and their culture was fiercely isolationist. Any attempt to land on their planet would surely result in immediate conflict. Yet, the map indicated that one of the relics lay hidden within their capital city. The Earthlings were not prepared for the Orcs' response. As they neared Sci-Fi, they were met by a fleet of ships unlike any they had encountered before. Massive, living vessels grown from organic matter, armed with advanced weapons that could tear apart even the most durable ships in the Earthling fleet. The Orcs' intelligence was unmatched, and their military tactics were based on centuries of brutal warfare. The Earthlings, while technologically advanced, were still novices in the art of galactic diplomacy and war. In the face of overwhelming odds, Commander Rachel Monroe, the leader of the expedition, made the first difficult decision. She would attempt diplomacy, not warfare. With a small team of emissaries, she landed on Sci-Fi's surface, risking everything for a chance at peace. The Orcs, despite their aggressive nature, were intrigued by the audacity of the Earthlings. They had never encountered a species so willing to negotiate instead of fight, and this small gesture of goodwill was enough to earn a fragile truce. The negotiations were tense, but ultimately, the Earthlings were able to convince the Orcs that the relic could be used for the mutual benefit of both species. However, it wasn't an easy victory. Commander Monroe had to prove humanity's commitment to peaceful coexistence, even as the Orcs tested her resolve with countless demands. The Earthlings knew that the path to intergalactic peace would be fraught with such trials, but they also understood that it was the only way forward. When the relic was finally handed over, it came with a dire warning. The Orcs' enemies, the relentless Dwyren, were aware of the Earthlings' presence. These monstrous creatures, born of a dark energy that consumed entire star systems, would soon be hunting them. The Earthlings now had an even greater threat to face. But they had succeeded in obtaining the first relic. And in doing so, they had proven something important. Not only could they conquer physical worlds, but they could also unite disparate civilizations through negotiation and diplomacy. This lesson, learned the hard way, would shape their actions for the trials ahead. Yet their victory was short-lived. No sooner had they departed Sci-Fi than the first wave of Dwyren ships appeared on the outskirts of the system, their massive forms blocking the path to the next relic. The Earthlings were now faced with a new dilemma. They had to protect the relics, their fleet, and their newfound alliances, all while defending themselves from an enemy that would stop at nothing to erase them from the galaxy. The battle against the Dwyren was brutal and relentless. Their ships moved like shadows, striking without warning and vanishing just as quickly. Earth's fleet, though powerful, was not prepared for the relentless assault. Every moment became a test of endurance, and Commander Monroe knew that this was just the beginning. As the first trial came to a close, the Earthlings had learned a critical lesson. The universe was far more dangerous than they had ever realized, but it was also full of possibilities. Their greatest strength lay not just in their technology, but in their determination to adapt, to learn, and to fight, not only for their survival, but for the future of all species. The Earthlings had become legends, not because they conquered the stars, but because they had the courage to face the unknown, to challenge the impossible, and to rise again, no matter how many times they fell. With the relic in their possession, humanity's destiny seemed sealed. But the galactic map embedded within the device held secrets far more perilous than any could have anticipated. The first trials were upon them, the challenge of navigating the stars and uncovering the mysteries hidden in distant corners of the galaxy. As the Earthlings adapted to their newfound power, they established the first interstellar fleet, a conglomerate of military ships, research vessels, and civilian crafts, all fueled by the energy drawn from the relic. It was a bold move, a test of their willpower, but also an acknowledgement of the tremendous risks they were about to face. The map indicated the location of 3 major relics, each positioned on a distant, hostile world, but the journey would not be easy. The architects had warned that the relics were guarded by forces beyond human comprehension, forces that had watched over these artifacts for millennia. The first target was a distant planet known as Sci-Fi, a planet cloaked in a dense, impenetrable fog. Its surface was home to a species of sentient beings known as the Orcs, a formidable, warlike civilization that had thrived for eons. Their technology was unknown, and their culture was fiercely isolationist. Any attempt to land on their planet would surely result in immediate conflict. Yet, the map indicated that one of the relics lay hidden within their capital city. The Earthlings were not prepared for the Orcs' response. As they neared Sci-Fi, they were met by a fleet of ships unlike any they had encountered before. Massive, living vessels grown from organic matter, armed with advanced weapons that could tear apart even the most durable ships in the Earthling fleet. The Orcs' intelligence was unmatched, and their military tactics were based on centuries of brutal warfare. The Earthlings, while technologically advanced, were still novices in the art of galactic diplomacy and war. In the face of overwhelming odds, Commander Rachel Monroe, the leader of the expedition, made the first difficult decision. She would attempt diplomacy, not warfare. With a small team of emissaries, she landed on Sci-Fi's surface, risking everything for a chance at peace. The Orcs, despite their aggressive nature, were intrigued by the audacity of the Earthlings. They had never encountered a species so willing to negotiate instead of fight, and this small gesture of goodwill was enough to earn a fragile truce. The negotiations were tense, but ultimately, the Earthlings were able to convince the Orcs that the relic could be used for the mutual benefit of both species. However, it wasn't an easy victory. Commander Monroe had to prove humanity's commitment to peaceful coexistence, even as the Orcs tested her resolve with countless demands. The Earthlings knew that the path to intergalactic peace would be fraught with such trials, but they also understood that it was the only way forward. When the relic was finally handed over, it came with a dire warning. The Orcs' enemies, the relentless Dwyren, were aware of the Earthlings' presence. These monstrous creatures, born of a dark energy that consumed entire star systems, would soon be hunting them. The Earthlings now had an even greater threat to face. But they had succeeded in obtaining the first relic. And in doing so, they had proven something important. Not only could they conquer physical worlds, but they could also unite disparate civilizations through negotiation and diplomacy. This lesson, learned the hard way, would shape their actions for the trials ahead. Yet their victory was short-lived. No sooner had they departed Sci-Fi than the first wave of Dwyren ships appeared on the outskirts of the system, their massive forms blocking the path to the next relic. The Earthlings were now faced with a new dilemma. They had to protect the relics, their fleet, and their newfound alliances, all while defending themselves from an enemy that would stop at nothing to erase them from the galaxy. The battle against the Dwyren was brutal and relentless. Their ships moved like shadows, striking without warning and vanishing just as quickly. Earth's fleet, though powerful, was not prepared for the relentless assault. Every moment became a test of endurance, and Commander Monroe knew that this was just the beginning. As the first trial came to a close, the Earthlings had learned a critical lesson. The universe was far more dangerous than they had ever realized, but it was also full of possibilities. Their greatest strength lay not just in their technology, but in their determination to adapt, to learn, and to fight. not only for their survival, but for the future of all species. The Earthlings had become legends, not because they conquered the stars, but because they had the courage to face the unknown, to challenge the impossible, and to rise again, no matter how many times they fell. The battle against the Dyrn had been a hard-earned victory, but it came with a cost. The Earthlings had triumphed over the relentless alien force, but the scars of war remained. The once unassuming fleet now consisted of battle-worn ships, their crews shaken by the ferocity of the Dyrn's attacks. The galaxy had grown smaller, and the Earthlings knew that there were more challenges to come, each more dangerous than the last. With the first relic secured, Commander Rachel Monroe and her team set their sights on the next target, a barren planet called Thanu. This world had once been home to a technologically advanced species known as the Tharkon, but they had disappeared long ago under mysterious circumstances. The architect's map led the Earthlings to believe that the second relic rested in the ruins of a once great city buried deep within Thanor's uninhabited deserts. But as they ventured closer to the planet, strange things began to occur. The Earthling fleet sensors began to malfunction. Their navigational systems became erratic, and strange signals, distorted, chaotic, and incomprehensible, seemed to emanate from the depths of Thanu. The planet, it seemed, was not as empty as it appeared. Upon landing, the Earthlings encountered the remnants of the Tharkon civilization, ruins that stretched far beneath the planet's surface, hidden from the eyes of even the most advanced scanners. The deeper they dug into the planet, the more unsettling the discoveries became. Strange symbols and energy readings filled the air, and signs of an ancient, catastrophic event lingered in the abandoned streets. What had caused the Tharkon to disappear? What had driven them to such ruin? The deeper the Earthlings explored, the more they uncovered the horrific truth. The Tharkon had not simply vanished. They had been consumed by the relic they had uncovered long ago, a relic far more dangerous than the Earthlings could have anticipated. The Tharkon had unlocked a power so great it had turned against them. The relic was not a source of unlimited energy, but a weapon, a device capable of distorting space itself, collapsing entire star systems with a mere flick of a switch. The planet of Thanor had once been a thriving hub of knowledge and technology, but the power of the relic had driven the Tharkon to madness. The entire species had been destroyed by their own creation, lost in the twisted grasp of the weapon's power. Now, the Earthlings faced a new dilemma. They had come to retrieve the relic, but the cost of taking it was clear. If they were to unlock its power, they would risk the same fate as the Tharkon. They had already witnessed its devastating potential, and it was clear that this relic could either elevate humanity to godlike status or destroy them entirely. Commander Monroe was forced to make a choice that would determine humanity's future. Would they take the relic, despite its obvious dangers, and risk becoming like the Tharkon? Or would they leave it behind, preventing its destructive power from falling into the wrong hands, while accepting the possibility that they might never reach their full potential? In the end, Monroe's decision was one of sacrifice. She ordered the destruction of the relic, rendering it inert and neutralizing its devastating power. The Earthlings would not allow themselves to fall victim to the same hubris that had destroyed the Tharkon. Their victory over the Dyrn had been hard-earned, and they could not afford to risk their newfound power on such a dangerous gamble. However, this decision did not come without consequence. The energy released from the destroyed relic caused a violent reaction deep within the planet's core, setting off a chain of earthquakes and eruptions that threatened to tear Thanu apart. The Earthlings raced to evacuate, narrowly escaping the planet as it collapsed into chaos. The price of power had been steep, but the Earthlings had learned a valuable lesson. The pursuit of greatness was not without its dangers. To wield the power of the universe was to walk a fine line, balancing the potential for greatness with the risk of destruction. It was a lesson they would carry with them as they journeyed onward, each victory reminding them of the fragile nature of their existence in the vast, unforgiving universe. As they left Thanor behind, Commander Monroe gazed out at the stars, knowing that the trials of humanity were far from over. The next relic awaited them, yet with each passing moment, The cost of their quest grew higher. Would they be able to stand strong, or would they fall like the civilizations before them? Only time would tell, but one thing was certain. The Earthlings would not be deterred. They had learned the price of power, and they would continue their journey, no matter what it cost. The destruction of Thaner had come at a great cost, both to the Earthlings' physical resources and their morale. As they limped through space aboard their battered ships, Commander Rachel Monroe knew they couldn't afford to lose focus. The next relic was their only hope for humanity's future, and despite the destruction they had just witnessed, they had no choice but to continue. However, the toll of their past decisions began to strain the unity that had once bound their diverse coalition together. The battle against the DYRN, the catastrophic destruction on Thaner, and the sacrifices made to protect humanity from the dangerous relics were beginning to weigh heavily on the fragile alliance that had formed among the Earthling nations. What began as a united front, fighting together for survival and exploration, was now splintering into factions. As the fleet made its way to the next relic's location, a planet named Illyria, known for its massive energy storms and hostile terrain, the cracks in the alliance deepened. The Tharkon relic's destruction had led to accusations of failure. Some factions within the coalition blamed Commander Monroe for making the call to destroy the weapon, arguing that the potential of harnessing its power could have secured humanity's dominance over the galaxy. Others feared that the Earthlings had already gone too far, that their quest for relics would only lead to more destruction and death. The pressure was mounting. The arrival at Illyria only intensified the tension. The planet's atmosphere was a violent swirl of electrical storms, and its surface was riddled with giant magnetic fields that disrupted both communications and navigation. As the Earthling fleet descended to land, the once cohesive group of leaders now found themselves at odds, some pushing for a more aggressive stance, while others wanted to take a more cautious approach, given the cost of their past actions. As they landed on Illyria's surface, the Earthlings encountered their first major setback. The relic was not buried in a distant ruin or an ancient structure, as they had expected. Instead, it was hidden within the heart of the planet's magnetic storms, at the center of a sprawling, unstable cavern system. To reach it, they would need to venture deep within the planet's deadly environment, without the support of their fleet. Commander Monroe knew this would test not only the physical resilience of her crew, but also their unity. If they couldn't trust one another in the face of such danger, they might not make it out alive. The Earthlings descended into the cavern system, navigating through jagged rock formations and perilous magnetic fields that caused the cavern walls to pulse with eerie, unpredictable energy. At the heart of the storm, they found the relic, but it was not a relic in the traditional sense. Instead of an artifact of untold power, they uncovered a powerful alien device, locked within a force field. The device emitted an intense gravitational pull, threatening to tear the planet apart. And there was no way to access the relic without triggering the destructive forces within. The discovery threw the Earthlings into turmoil. Some factions argued they should attempt to harness the power of the device, believing that they could control it, just as they had once hoped to control the Tharkon relic. Others, however, saw it as another dangerous weapon that could destroy them, just as the DYRN had nearly done. The bitter disagreements split the leadership of the Earthling fleet. A faction led by General Marcus Vance, a military leader with a thirst for power, pushed for a risky experiment to breach the force field and seize the device. Vance argued that humanity had to take risks if they were to ascend to greatness. Meanwhile, Monroe and the scientific leadership believed that tampering with the device would destroy the entire planet, and with it, any hope for humanity's future. The breaking point came when Vance and his followers tried to take control of the operation, overriding Monroe's orders to evacuate. Tensions erupted into open conflict. A mutiny broke out aboard the flagship, and Monroe found herself fighting not only for her life, but for the survival of her crew. As the chaos unfolded, the cavern trembled violently. The magnetic fields had destabilized, causing the planet's core to react. Illyria was starting to break apart, its internal pressure building to dangerous levels. Time was running out, and the Earthlings had to make a choice: Abandon the relic, evacuate, and try to return to Earth or risk everything by fighting amongst themselves. In the end, it was Monroe's resolve that held the Earthlings together. She managed to rally the Loyalists and stop the mutiny, and together, they fled the collapsing cavern just moments before the gravitational force of the device caused a catastrophic eruption. The relic, left behind, remained hidden, its dangerous potential untouched. The fleet barely escaped Illyria's destruction. As they watched the planet disintegrate in their wake, it was clear that the trial had left deep scars on the Earthlings. The alliance was broken, and the distrust between the factions had reached an irreversible point. Humanity had been tested once again, and while they had survived, the cost had been high. The pursuit of the relics had fractured them. The truth had become undeniable. The more they sought to control the galaxy's power, the more they risked tearing themselves apart. The story of humanity's greatest triumphs had begun to take a darker turn. As the Earthlings limped toward their next destination, they were forced to confront the reality that their quest for greatness might come with consequences far beyond anything they had anticipated. Would they heal from this division, or would they fall into ruin, broken by their own ambition? Only time would tell. The Earthlings' journey had reached a crossroads. After the betrayal on Illyria, the cracks in the Federation, once a symbol of unity and hope, had widened into an abyss. The coalition that had stood together in the face of so many threats was now a fractured collection of competing factions, each driven by its own vision of humanity's future. Commander Rachel Monroe, once the unwavering symbol of leadership, found herself at odds with the very people she had once called allies. General Marcus Vance, leader of the militant faction that had attempted the mutiny, had become a powerful voice in the Federation. His ideals of aggression, conquest, and the belief that humanity should dominate the galaxy had begun to spread like wildfire, gaining support from those who feared that Monroe's caution and diplomacy would lead them to irrelevance. The Earthling fleet, once united in purpose, was now divided between two factions: the expansionists, led by Vance, who advocated for a militarized approach to claiming the galaxy, and the Guardians, who remained loyal to Monroe's philosophy of cautious exploration, diplomacy, and avoiding unnecessary conflict. The Federation, once a beacon of human cooperation, was on the verge of collapse. In the midst of this political turmoil, a new and even greater threat loomed. The Architects, the enigmatic race that had given humanity the knowledge of the relics, had been watching from the shadows. They had remained silent, observing humanity's rise and its descent into division. But now, they were ready to make their move. The Architects' long-awaited intervention came in the form of a cryptic transmission, an ultimatum. Humanity had grown too unpredictable, too reckless in its pursuit of power. The Architects had given Earthlings the opportunity to prove their worth, but they had failed to demonstrate the unity and self-discipline necessary to be trusted with the relics. As a result, the Architects had decided to impose their judgment on Earth. They would take the relics from the humans and, if necessary, remove humanity from the equation entirely. The Federation, divided and weakened, was in no position to respond as a unified force. In a desperate attempt to gain control, General Vance led a massive military campaign to seize the remaining relics before the Architects could intervene. His forces, bolstered by the most powerful ships Earth had ever created, launched a surprise attack on the most well-guarded relics, hoping to secure them before the Architects arrived. The Guardians, loyal to Monroe's vision, were left with little choice but to oppose Vance's reckless assault. The battle between the two factions was brutal, and the galaxy trembled as human forces clashed against one another. The once proud Federation was now tearing itself apart, and both sides suffered immense casualties. The struggle to control the relics had devolved into a civil war, and the Earthlings were no longer united in their quest for greatness. They were fighting for their very survival. As the fighting raged, the Architects arrived. Their ships, sleek and silent, appeared from the void, their advanced technology far beyond anything humanity could comprehend. They did not speak, nor did they make their intentions clear. They simply began to extract the relics one by one from their hiding places across the galaxy. Monroe, Witnessing the devastation and realizing the truth of the architect's ultimatum, knew that humanity's last hope was to reconcile. She contacted Vance, who was already preparing to launch an all-out assault on the architect's fleet. With the fate of humanity hanging in the balance, she urged him to stop the war, to lay down arms, and to negotiate a truce. The conversation between the two was tense, charged with years of mistrust, but Monroe's resolve and the growing realization that humanity was on the brink of extinction slowly wore down Vance's defiance. The Federation had failed in its pursuit of power, but there was still one chance left to salvage the future of Earth and its people: unity. In a final desperate gambit, the two factions called for an emergency summit on a neutral moon, far from the battlefield. It was there that Commander Monroe and General Vance, along with the leaders of the warring factions, faced the architects. The beings who had once seen humanity as potential allies now looked upon them with disdain, their judgment clear. The Federation was a broken shell of its former self, incapable of leading humanity to greatness. The architects gave humanity one final choice: abandon the relics, cease the pursuit of power, and return to their peaceful ways, or face the complete annihilation of their species. The relics, they said, were not tools for domination, they were tools for enlightenment, and humanity had proven itself unworthy. The summit was a disaster. The leaders of the Federation, still deeply divided, could not come to an agreement. The warring factions were too far apart, their goals too different, and the threat of the architects loomed larger than any one human ambition. In the end, the architects decided for them. They sealed the relics away, beyond humanity's reach, and began to erase all knowledge of the relics from Earth's memory. The remnants of the Federation were left to ponder their failures, their pride, and the consequences of their ambition. As the architects departed, leaving behind a devastated Earth and a broken Federation, Monroe realized that humanity's quest for greatness had blinded them to the simple truths that had once guided them: unity, cooperation, and humility. The price of power had been too high, and humanity had paid the cost. The fall of the Federation was a tragic reminder that even the greatest of species could fall when consumed by their own desires. And while humanity had the potential to rise again, it was clear that they would need to rebuild, to remember the lessons of their past, and to reclaim their place in the universe, not through conquest, but through the strength of their unity. For now, though, Earth was left in silence, a cautionary tale to all who would follow in its footsteps. The fall of the Federation had sent shockwaves through the galaxy, a testament to the fragility of ambition and the cost of unchecked power. Earth, once poised to dominate the stars, was now a broken shell of its former self. The architects had sealed the relics away, and with their departure, humanity found itself standing at the precipice of extinction, not from external threats, but from their own internal division. The lessons of the past were painfully clear, yet the path forward seemed uncertain. For years, Earthlings remained isolated. The once vibrant fleets were disbanded, and the remnants of the Federation faded into obscurity. In the absence of the relics, humanity had lost its drive, its vision. Governments fell into disarray, as citizens were left grappling with the consequences of their collective ambition. The energy and promise of the early days of exploration and conquest were replaced with a quiet resignation, a sense of lost potential. But as history had shown time and time again, from the ashes of failure, there was always a spark of renewal. The Earthlings had not yet given up. Though fractured, the human spirit refused to be extinguished. At the heart of this quiet rebirth was a small group of visionaries, leaders from the old Federation who had seen the collapse for what it was: not an end, but a beginning. They understood the danger of pursuing unchecked power, but they also knew that humanity's potential had not been fully realized. If they could learn from their mistakes, perhaps there was still a chance to reclaim their place among the stars, not through dominance, but through cooperation, knowledge, and a renewed commitment to unity. Rachel Monroe, now an elder stateswoman, had retreated from public life in the wake of the Federation's collapse. Her once strong convictions had been shattered by the failure of her leadership, and for years, She questioned her own role in humanity's downfall. But deep down, she knew that the mission was not over. The lessons she had learned during her trials, the painful sacrifices, and the courage to make difficult decisions, these would guide her as she sought to rebuild what had been lost. She was not alone. Across the world, in every corner of the earth, new movements began to take root. People had learned the hard way that power without restraint, without wisdom, was a double-edged sword. A new generation of leaders arose, scientists, diplomats, philosophers, who understood that the future of humanity depended not on the conquest of new worlds, but on the mastery of themselves. One such leader, Dr. Sophia Larkin, a brilliant scientist who had once been part of the Federation's scientific division, became the voice of the new movement. Larkin believed that humanity could transcend its destructive impulses. She argued that rather than seeking to control the stars, the Earthlings should focus on their own planet, healing the wounds they had inflicted upon it, and preparing for a future that embraced knowledge, cooperation, and empathy. She called it the era of enlightenment, a period of rebuilding from within, a time to embrace the true potential of human ingenuity without falling into the trap of ambition. The movement gained traction. Old alliances, fractured in the wake of the Federation's collapse, began to reform. National borders became less significant as Earthlings united under a common cause, to restore their planet to its natural beauty and ensure the survival of their species, without resorting to the destructive practices of the past. Humanity, under the guidance of Monroe, Larkin, and their fellow leaders, turned their attention inward, seeking solutions to the environmental and social crises that had once seemed insurmountable. The human race, having tasted the horrors of greed and conquest, now sought to heal. Cities once marked by pollution and waste began to flourish, as new technologies focused on sustainability and energy conservation reshaped the planet. The Earthlings embraced a new philosophy. True power lay not in conquering the stars, but in mastering their own existence. And yet, even in the midst of this rebirth, there remained a desire for exploration, for discovery. The relics, still sealed away by the architects, remained an enigma, a symbol of humanity's lost opportunity. The temptation to reclaim the knowledge they held was strong, but Earth's leaders knew better than to fall into the same trap again. The relics, they agreed, would remain locked away until humanity had truly earned the wisdom to wield them. The quest for the stars would no longer be driven by a lust for power, but by a genuine desire for understanding, for enlightenment. As Earth entered its new era, its scientists began to work together, not as isolated nations, but as a single united force. They sent expeditions to the stars not to conquer, but to learn. Their missions were peaceful, focused on diplomacy and knowledge sharing. Slowly, the galaxy began to take notice. The Earthlings, once feared for their ambition, were now seen as allies, beacons of hope in a universe scarred by endless wars and conflict. The peaceful exploration of the galaxy marked the beginning of a new chapter for humanity. The Earthlings had learned, through trial and tribulation, that true greatness did not come from power, but from wisdom and humility. Their story, once one of reckless ambition and painful downfall, had transformed into one of quiet rebirth and hope. The galaxy, once filled with uncertainty about humanity's place in it, now began to see Earth as something different, a species that had learned the most important lesson of all, that power, unchecked, could destroy, but power tempered with wisdom, compassion, and unity could uplift not just a single species, but the entire galaxy. Humanity had become legends, not through conquest, but through the quiet strength of self-reflection and growth. They had fallen, yes, but they had risen again, not to dominate, but to contribute, to learn, and to build a lasting legacy of peace. The Earthlings' greatest triumph had been their ability to change, to evolve, to heal, and to find their true purpose in the universe. The era of enlightenment had transformed humanity. The Earthlings, once burdened by the weight of their own ambition and fractured by internal conflict, had emerged from the ashes as a new kind of force in the galaxy, not one of conquest, but one of collaboration, exploration, and humility. They had healed their world, rebuilt their societies, and redefined their purpose in the cosmos. Yet, even as they flourished, they knew the journey was not over. Their greatest triumph was not a single victory, but a continued commitment to self-reflection and growth. The relics remained sealed away, their mysteries untouched. The architects, who had once judged humanity as unworthy, now observed with quiet approval. Earth's leaders had learned their lessons, and the quest for power had been replaced with a thirst for knowledge. They had learned the importance of unity, of trusting one another, and of taking responsibility for their actions. The scars of the past still lingered, but they had become the foundation for a brighter future. Humanity's first true steps into the stars were cautious, deliberate, and peaceful. The ships that once carried Earth's warriors into battle now carried its diplomats and scientists, forging alliances with other civilizations, sharing knowledge, and working together to preserve peace. The galaxy that had once trembled at the prospect of humanity's rise now welcomed them as partners. The first human colony outside the solar system, known as Horizon Station, was established as a beacon of Earth's newfound vision. It was not a military outpost, nor a symbol of dominance, but a place where different species could come together to exchange ideas, share their cultures, and collaborate on technological advancements. It became a testament to the human spirit, the willingness to build, to learn, and to thrive in harmony with others. Earth itself had become a symbol of resilience. It had not just survived the mistakes of its past, but had emerged stronger, wiser, and more determined to create a future that honored its history while embracing the possibilities ahead. The environment, once ravaged by pollution and exploitation, had begun to heal. Earth cities were now hubs of sustainable technology, innovation, and art. Human ingenuity had solved the crises that once seemed insurmountable, from energy scarcity to climate change. They had become stewards of their planet, understanding that true strength lay in their ability to coexist with the world around them. As humanity continued to expand its influence across the stars, it was not as conquerors, but as humble learners. They sought knowledge not to control, but to understand. They studied the diverse life forms that populated the galaxy, learning from their successes and their failures. Earth had become a repository of knowledge, sharing its discoveries with others and receiving wisdom in return. In doing so, humanity fulfilled its potential, not as a dominant species, but as a vital part of a greater galactic community. The legacy of Earth's rise and fall was passed down to future generations, not as a cautionary tale, but as a source of strength and inspiration. The Earthlings had known the price of ambition, the cost of division, and the devastation wrought by the pursuit of unchecked power. But they had also known the power of unity, of reflection, and of humility. It was this knowledge that guided their every decision, and it was this knowledge that would ensure they would never again fall into the same traps. The galaxy, once a place of fear and uncertainty regarding humanity's place in it, now saw Earth as a beacon of hope. The Earthlings had not only learned from their mistakes, they had used those lessons to shape a future that was inclusive, peaceful, and ever curious. They had embraced the idea that true greatness did not come from domination or control, but from the pursuit of knowledge, the cultivation of wisdom, and the ability to learn from every experience. In the centuries that followed, Earth's story was told not as a tale of greatness achieved through power, but as a testament to humanity's ability to change, to evolve, and to make amends. It became a legend, one that inspired countless civilizations throughout the galaxy to reflect on their own paths and to ask themselves the same questions humanity had once faced. What is the price of power? What is the cost of ambition? And what does it truly mean to be great? Humanity's triumphs, both great and small, were not defined by the number of worlds they conquered, but by the relationships they built, the lessons they learned, and the legacy they left behind. Earth had become a legend not because it was the most powerful species in the galaxy, but because it was the one that had learned to live with wisdom and humility, showing the galaxy what true greatness really looked like. And in the quiet moments, when the stars stretched out in front of them, the Earthlings knew that their journey was far from over. There were still mysteries to uncover, worlds to discover, and lessons to learn. But now, they would face it all together, united, humble, and driven by a desire to make the galaxy a better place, not for themselves, but for everyone. This was their greatest triumph, not the relics they had sought, but the growth they had achieved, and the lasting legacy they had left behind for generations to come.